Yo, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for checking out another SGN video where it's all sim all the time. And if you are new to this channel, please do me a favor, click the subscribe button. I'm like 40 people away from 4,000 subscribers, and if you aren't aware, which you probably aren't because you're not subscribed, I do giveaways every 1,000 subscribers. So help me get to that goal. Help me give away some of my money. You know, you never know, you might win. Perfect time to get a little extra money towards Madden or 2K or whatever your flavor. All right. So it does help me out. I really appreciate it. And for those of you that are subscribed to the channel, I do want to apologize. I haven't been uploading a lot right now. Summertime is tough because we're in that weird zone where, you know, MLB The Show came out back in April, and then, you know, we're getting the new Madden information and new 2K information, and no one's really playing the old versions. They're kind of just excited and ready for the new ones. And so I don't really have a lot of content to put out other than when Madden drops something awesome like they did today, which is new scouting information, which is huge. It's going to make franchise mode a lot better. They definitely tease that we got some more exciting things coming in live updates later in the year, but we don't know what those are yet. So I'm excited for that. Anyway, what I did for you guys is this video is an hour long. All right. And there was a lot of irrelevant information and discussion that had zero implications on scouting. So what I did for you guys is trimmed all the fat. So whether you already watched it live and you just want to come back and watch it again, see if you missed something, or you happen to miss it and you just weren't able to see it, this is going to get you straight to the point without you having to sit through all the other stuff that's pointless, we don't care about. Honestly, I'm sitting there and I'm like, why is this being talked about? This is scouting. Let's talk about scouting. So when they actually did talk about scouting, it was a great informative video. I'm really looking forward to it when they implement it in September. Hopefully it's early September instead of late September, because when the game comes out in August, like, you know, once people get their slider sets, like, people are going to want to start their franchise, and you're not going to want to start your franchise without the scouting, especially with how revolutionary it is. So yeah, hopefully we don't have to wait too long for it. Anyways, one last thing is, if you haven't already, please go ahead and follow me over at Twitter. I'll drop my @ right now. The reason I said it is because it's a great way to interact with me if you have any questions about video games. I'm also developing a pretty good relationship with Swami EA, aka Andre, who talks about scouting here in this video. He replies to me almost always when I talk to him about Madden, and definitely seems like we're having a good relationship. So if you're curious to get a little bit of more information or see more interaction with devs, definitely want to check me out on Twitter, because you can follow along with that interaction and see that information for yourself. So that's it for me, guys. I'm going to go ahead and just let the video play. I hope you enjoy it, and as always, stay tuned in the next video.
I think it's time to get into the scout. When can we expect to get our hands on it?
We're excited to get this in the hands of our players. It's going to kick off our live service continuous development for this year for franchise. So it's coming early in the season.
We're targeting this first one for September. First big beat of, you know, 3 seemed to be a cadence that worked for us last year, like 3 groups of content that we delivered through the course of the year. So we'll be looking at that same approach this year.
I know I'm excited. I wonder who we should talk to about scout. Don't look around. We're staring right at you. Andre, we're dying. Tell us what we can expect with the revamp of scouting.
All right, so
That deep sigh really makes me excited, because I know that means there's a lot.
You've been waiting for this for years,
so
right?
excited.
I've been waiting a long time for this. So scouting as a whole is being revamped. Obviously, you'll still be able to scout players, but the way that we go about it is entirely different. We're moving away from the scouting point system, where you have a bucket of points each week and then you spend it on players. This is more making key decisions throughout the season that progress every single player on your board at different points. So you start things off essentially by getting a baseline scouting on every player in your class. You know, this guy runs fast, he can move well, he's strong. And then
you sounded like Mel Kiper right now. He's got quiet hands.
One of the big goals I had was I wanted to add complexity to the feature, but I wanted to remove some of the tediousness of it. So you don't have to go in every single week and feel like you're missing something if you don't. But there are key decision points that you're going to want to interact with, because that'll shape how your board basically evaluates itself over the course of a season. So you'll be able to pick a position per each of your now 4 area scouts and a national scout. Rather than it just being a scouting department, you have individual scouts with strengths and weaknesses.
So I might have a guy who specializes in scouting quarterbacks.
Yeah, and you're going to send them out, the area scouts, to one of 4 regions on the map. You know, some regions have more schools than others, so we kind of cut them off a little bit at the pass. So each region has its merit to send a quality scout. And you'll be able to assign your scouts at the start of each season based on a preliminary big board. And the big board is changing in itself. It's no longer just, you know, here's all the players ranked. We're treating it more as a media big board. So a player has a few really good games in a row, right? And you see a news blurb pop up that this player just, you know, he's been dominant. You're going to see that he's going to move up the draft board. So the AI itself is going to draft players based on the changes in perception and evaluation of the players, instead of it being that, you know, you find this guy in the 5th round and he's the best player in the class and he just sits there. That's not going to happen anymore. It's really going to be a lot more that if you find that player and you really key in on them at different scouting events, you'll be able to gather a large amount of information, but it comes at a cost. And the cost is awareness for the media. So you send your national scout, and we call it focus scouting. This is one of the biggest milestones in terms of report completion that you're going to get. And when you do that, the media is going to be aware that you are attending this player's game. So if it's a 6th round player and you're sending your national scout, the guy who you want the best report from, to a 6th round player's game for that guy, they're going to be like, whoa, this guy
So
might
I can't
be
have
something.
any secrets is what you're saying. I can't secretly scout anyone.
You can scout in secret, but you might have to sacrifice a little bit of information, right?
So if I'm trying to get that full completion, that's basically me sending my national scout in the front row and everyone knows that I'm sitting there to scout this guy.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, you'll have private workouts that you'll be able to do. Same premise, where you'll have a few players that you can bring in for those private workouts. And that'll give you a big boost in the report completion. But there's additional layers to it. So that big board ebbs and flows, and there'll be mock drafts. Well, right now we have it scheduled for 5 mock drafts over the course of the season. So as draft position changes, so does this. So if you need to make a decision on, oh man, I'm not going to be able to get to pick 16, and they're looking at this player and this position, I might have to jump them, or I have to change my plans on who I'm looking at. So the entirety is more information.
My first thought with this was, in a multi-user league, is it possible for somebody to throw somebody off their scent, to sit there and go like, I know, like for example, if I'm the Dolphins and I sort of know where I'm going to be, and I know the Bengals are right behind me and they're going to be drafting, and I know that they're going to be, you know, wanting to jump me if I'm looking for a quarterback. Can I start scouting offensive linemen to try to throw them off that, oh, you don't need to jump me, you're fine, stay there?
Theoretically, yes.
Thank you. I'm looking to be a real jerk in my league, so I appreciate that.
That's one of those
ability.
things that we talked about earlier, building it in a way that people who want to go that layer deeper, be it multiplayer leagues or whatever, that there's that deeper design there. That's a good, solid approach, I think. So,
absolutely, and we've talked with former NFL personnel, former scouts, media members who do scouting, all sorts of different groups of people about the scouting process. And the one thing that always comes back to me is the aggregation of information is the hardest part of scouting, because you can understand every single layer of a player's skill set, but if you don't piece it together properly to make that full picture, it doesn't matter. And that's where a lot of people get tripped up. You can see this guy's fast, or this guy has a big arm, but if you don't understand that, well, yeah, he has that big arm and he can throw deep, but because he doesn't have the mental processing or the awareness for our game's sake, then he's not going to be that guy that you would expect, or that he was in college. So aggregation is not going to be exact. You might not find their exact true talent range, and it's a range this year. Instead of saying this guy's a 1st round pick, it'll be, you know, round 1 to round 2, or top 5. You know, those blue chip players, those are clear cut. And as you get later in the draft, that range is wider. So we want to give you as much information as possible without overwhelming. And
I mean, I'm overwhelmed right now. I'm not gonna lie. This is unbelievable. I'm so excited for this. What would you say was the most important thing for you to get right when it came to scouting?
Obviously, the information itself, what we're giving you and how we're giving it to you, was really important. But the loop of what are the reveal milestones, what are your action points, right? When do you need to engage with this system, and can you engage with it when you don't need to? So for me, I staggered it throughout the season because I wanted to make sure that there was information relevant for you as a player at each stage of the season. And then the postseason hits, and you can focus on your playoff games. You don't have to worry about scouting at all. Off-season comes back around, boom, it hits you back up again, and that's when you really start diving in. You get the combine, the pro days, the private workouts. So making sure that you have something to do at all the relevant points, especially when the season lulls, and making sure that it stays out of your way when it doesn't need to be there. But you can always go in and look. That scouting tab will never disappear.
First of all, my favorite thing is these guys work on the game and they are locked into this discussion. These guys know about, like, I'm locked in because I didn't know. These guys are listening on the edge of their seats. Is there something built into the game that's going to prevent me from signing all the best scouts and turning the Cleveland Browns into the dynasty that they truly deserve to be? Don't tell me otherwise.
I describe it as there are tiers to your scouting department that you need to fill. So rather than it being, I have a certain amount of points, or I'm just going to sign all the best scouts, you have, let's say, 3 tiers. And that really modifies how much additional bonus you get when scouting a position of expertise. So it's really not that you're picking the best scouts, you're picking the scouts that are most logical for you. But they have 2 positions of expertise. And that's going to be a little bit of a teaser for something that we're going to be dropping in the future, but it's going to be there. And the second one is grayed out. You'll be able to access that at some point post-launch, but we're not going to get too much into that. So you're picking your scouts. I think that's one of the other considerations that we had, where if you choose not to interact with the system, it'll essentially autopilot for you, and it'll treat it like the computer is doing it, rather than costing you for not interacting with it. You just like building a roster and just going through season after season. You can still get that as long as you spend just a little bit of time right at the front, right? It's not like it's week 3 anymore. It is preseason week 1 that you're jumping into scouting for the first time.
You're getting it right away as opposed to having to wait for that.
Yeah, and your touch point literally is assigning which region. You don't have, your scouts will go out and do their thing immediately. You don't have to pick a single player. All you need to do is evaluate the big board, see a mock draft, say where you want them to go, and then let them go for the entire preseason. You could skip the preseason, and you're not going to miss a thing.
Yeah.